Hi students, it's Mrs. Gerwin again, and today I'm going to give you a quick little lesson on character traits, what they are and how you find them. Hopefully this is a review for everyone, because this is definitely something that you've talked about in your previous English classes. So first of all, character traits describe who a person is on the inside or their personality. It's what makes them unique. So each of us has character traits that are unique to themselves. So for example, I can be very outgoing and loud. You always hear me in the hallway when I'm talking because I'm a loud person. That's part of who I am. It's part of my character. On the screen, I have a list of a few different character traits. There are many, many more than this, but for example, you might say that someone is honest if they are someone who always tells the truth. Someone who is optimistic or has the character trait of being optimistic is someone who always sees the positive side of things. Someone who can be described as a restless character is someone who is always moving. They just cannot sit still. And someone who is anxious, if that's a character trait, they're someone who tends to always be worried about everything. If you didn't pick that up, for it to be a character trait, it is pretty much always true about that person or character. We see them behave, we see them act this way a lot. Now, this is where you have to be careful because sometimes what we call a character trait is just a feeling. For it to be a character trait, it's always true. So every time she hears the word no, she gets angry. That would make her character trait as angry or maybe short-tempered. If it's a feeling, that means it's only sometimes or temporary. So like, man, she was angry that one time she stubbed her toe. She doesn't walk around angry all the time. She was just upset that one time because she stubbed her toe and it hurt. It felt like an explosion. So that's the difference between a character trait, always true, and a feeling, only sometimes true. So let's practice. I'm going to give you a situation and I'm going to ask you if it's a trait or a feeling. Cheryl is easily upset by anything that goes wrong. I once saw her cry because her coffee got cold. Is Cheryl just feeling sad, or does she have a gloomy character trait? John is about to give his first presentation in front of the class ever. He's starting to sweat a little and he's thinking about everything that could go wrong. Is John feeling nervous right now, or does he have an anxious character trait? Jared has a tough test tomorrow. He knows he should study, but he doesn't feel like it. He didn't study for the last test either. Is John feeling unmotivated right now, or does he have a lazy character trait? Okay, so why is it important to know what character traits are? First of us, it helps us make predictions about what characters are going to do and where the plot is going. If we know that somebody is really short-tempered and is always going to lash out in anger, we can probably predict that when they lash out at their teacher in the middle of class, there's going to be some consequences after that. We can see where the story is going. Characters can also change and grow in response to their environment. Even though they may be short-tempered at the beginning of the story, maybe they'll start going to some anger management classes or getting some therapy, and they'll be able to change that character trait and grow into a better person who's not angry all the time. And finally, we can learn lessons about the real world by understanding characters from books better. If there's a short-tempered character and we see that all their short-temperedness does is make their friends mad at them and causes them to lose some friendships, we can learn that maybe being angry all the time isn't the best way to be a good friend. So how do I find a character trait? As I'm reading, what do I have to look at in order to figure out what kind of a person they are? So you're going to look at what the character says, their dialogue, what the character does, their actions, what the character thinks about inside their brain, and you're going to look at how other people react to the character because sometimes the way other people treat you is a big sign about who you are as a human being. So let's practice again. I'm going to give you another scenario or a set of scenarios, and I want you to figure out, based on what kind of clue I tell you to look for, what character trait does each character have. So here, the question asks, based on what Ryan says, what trait do they have? So pay attention to the dialogue or what he says. Next week is the district championship game for the 8th grade football team. Ryan, the quarterback, is really excited. Don't worry, guys, he tells his teammates. I've got this. I have everything under control. I throw the longest passes in the district with perfect aim. They can't touch us. I'll carry us all to victory. His teammates grumble. Ryan always brags like this before a big game. So again, based on what Ryan says, what trait do they have? A, confident. B, cheerful. C, anxious. D, distracted. Hopefully you picked confident, because if we look at what he says, don't worry guys, I've got this, I have everything under control, I throw the longest passes in the district with perfect aim, they can't touch us, I'll carry us all to victory. All that shows that he really is confident, he really knows that he's good at playing football and that he's going to do well. Cheerful doesn't quite work because cheerful just means happy. He's more than happy, he's confident in himself. Next scenario, we are looking at what Zoe does. Zoe looked out at the rain from her bedroom window. It had been pouring for hours, and it didn't look like it would stop anytime soon. Suddenly, she noticed a tiny kitten out in the rain. Its mother wasn't nearby, and it couldn't find any shelter. Quickly, she ran out her front door and rescued the little ball of fur. She brought it inside, bundled it up in her favorite blanket, and set out some leftover tuna so it could eat. Hopefully, her mom doesn't mind adding another rescue animal to their home. So, based on what Zoe does, what trait do they have? A, careless. B, excitable. C, caring. D, sorrowful. So if we look at what she does, she runs out in the rain and she rescues the cat. And we can see that this is something she does a lot because she's adding another rescue animal, which implies that she's done this before. So we can infer, we can see that she is a caring person. All right, so for this scenario, you're going to look at what Barb thinks. So what's going on in her mind? Susie walks up to Barb and asks, "Hey Barb, do you mind showing me your math homework from last night? I want to check my answer." Barb thinks about it for a moment. Barb thinks about the last time Susie asked for help, when her friend copied all of Barb's answers. And she copied off of Barb in English class too. The teacher found out and got really mad, threatening to fail both of the girls if it happened again. Susie wouldn't do that again. She's definitely learned her lesson by now, Barb thinks. So based on what Barb thinks, what trait do they have? A, suspicious. B, playful. C, kind. D, trusting. So hopefully you picked up that she's trusting, because even though her friend Susie has done this before, she's copied off of Barb and she's gotten Barb in trouble, Barb still thinks that Susie is going to do the right thing. She trusts her friend, maybe even when she shouldn't. Finally, we're going to look at how Jim reacts when Carson walks in the room to try to figure out what kind of a person Carson is. So pay attention to what Jim does when Carson shows up and see if we can make any guesses about what Carson's character trait is. It's the first day of school and Jim is ready for a fresh start. Last year he struggled a lot in school and it took him a while before he found people who were nice and would be his friends. As Jim gets ready for first period, he suddenly freezes, panicking as Carson walks into the room. Carson, with his big, mean grin, directed right at Jim. So, based on how Jim reacts when Carson walks in, Carson's trait is A, shy. B, cruel. C, bossy. D, loving. So we see that he freezes and he panics when he sees Carson. We can probably guess from that Jim and Carson don't have a very good relationship. Maybe Carson is the one who made Jim's first year at school a struggle. So we can infer, we can guess that Carson must be a cruel person or a cruel character. So hopefully this helps you understand character traits. If you still have questions, try watching the video again or write them down and bring it to Zoom class tomorrow. We'll review more then. Bye guys!